And of course, in this crazy old sport, we only give Canelo, about 10 minutes until he has his post-fight interview before we talk about what's next. What next for him? I mean, obviously the world is oyster anyway, regardless of kind of what happens.
That's it. There's a world tour. I think he should. I think he should do a world tour. I don't see what meaningful fights out there for him except now really till you wait for someone else to emerge, or you go to light heavyweight. Now he could go to light heavyweight and he could beat everyone. But I just think, how many risks do you take now? Because, he can't get any better. Can he? I don't know.
I think maybe he can get better at 168. I don't think him at 175 will see a better version of him up there. I think naturally I think against Kovalev, I felt like he was flat in that fight. Yeah. I didn't feel like that was the best version of him.
And no, he could beat Beterbiev. I mean, I'd maybe make him favourite to beat him. Not a massive favour, but what I just see again, for the risk of what? You've won a title at that weight. Kovalev's a good fighter. I know he's not the Kovalev that was the Kovalev, but still a good enough name. And you've done that. Where'd you go? Winning this again doesn't do any more for you. You're getting big money fights. You boxing Beterbiev or Liam Williams, if he moved up, it's the same amount of money for Canelo. It's not for them, maybe, but the same amount of money for Canelo, because he's the selling point wherever he fights. Look, he'll get more for boxing Golovkin again. Maybe that's the option. Boxes Golovkin and again. That's probably the biggest money fight for him, possibly. Charlos, they're all risky fights for him if they move up in weight and they can be comfortable at that weight. But they're not huge sellers. I wouldn't have thought yet. They're not superstars in the sport. I wouldn't have thought.
I think the Charlo fight on pay-per-view in America is a big fight. I think that's a big fight.
It's a big.
But again, I get
it's a bigger fight. But it's all about Canelo.
Yeah.
Really. That's what I'm saying.
I get what you're saying.
Whoever he fights, right? He if he says I want 20 million, he gets 20 million. There's a limit to how much he'll get, I would imagine. But that Golovkin thing was probably a different level altogether. But that was probably the biggest thing you've ever got. But all the others, no. There's no huge names around him. I wouldn't have thought other superstars to rival him. There might be fighters that could beat him, but I think the longer he stays around, the more chance he got to beat him. I know boxing's no boxing, no life, which is a great motto, of course. But what you do, where's the inspiration come from? No.
Well, he said to Bunsey that he feels he's got 7 years left in him, 7 years left in him. So I mean,
maybe because then a whole new generation emerges. Because it's 3-year cycles in boxing usually, isn't it?
Yeah.
No more or less. I mean, longer nowadays actually, which is not a good thing for the sport, by the way. The longer these fighters stay on, it almost smothers the development of the next generation. In a weird sense, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It's almost like they take all the work.
Well, it's sort of when even as recently was when Pacquiao was kind of hovering around. Everyone wanted the Pacquiao fight, and it holds up a whole division. Yeah, it's similar with Canelo. It was the same with Mayweather. It was the same to a lesser extent with Anthony Joshua when he held the belts at heavyweight. People want to see what the money man's doing, and obviously he's not been around for the same length of time as Pacquiao or Mayweather. But yeah, it does kind of hold things up a little bit when you've got the money guy in the division.
You're all chasing him, and also the public only want to see him against you because he's a recognisable name. But you really got to be building the other generation up so people all know their names. And like Crawford and Spence, who are now in their 30s, by the way. So we want them to meet now. They still feel to me like the young generation, but they're not now. They're going to be past their peak now in a minute, and never going to fight. But so where does Canelo go? Wherever he wants to. That's the truth of it. Whatever he wants to do, he could do a world tour, box all around the world, like true superstars of the sport used to do. And in real fights, not like having exhibition fights or boxing people who are not good enough to beat him. He could come over to the UK and box whoever he wanted to. Give us a name, I don't know. Zach Parker.
Yeah, Zach Parker's the WBO man.
That's not a real fight for him, is it? But no disrespect to Zach. He's a good boxer. He was good on Saturday night, but it's not. It don't seem a good fight for him on paper because they've led leagues apart at the minute. But he could box people. There's people he could box who are decent names, but. What does he do?
So I think it's difficult because it's sort of like no matter if he went up and he beat Beterbiev and Bivol and everybody would be talking about we'll go to cruiserweight and fight Bradis or whoever, a Coley or somebody like that. So it feels like
Bradis would beat him.
Yeah, he would, because he's fucking massive. He's 200 pounds, like, and he's
good.
And yeah, exactly, and he's really good. So, but like, this kind of where I'm going with it, like, there are fights that I still really want to see Canelo in, but I also have him a significant favourite, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, like the Charlo fight, for example, bringing him up from 160 to 168, I would make Canelo a sizable favourite in that fight. But I'd still quite like to see it. Same with David Benavidez, who, of course, is in action this weekend.
Yeah.
Dmitry Bivol and Beterbiev obviously moving up to 175 adds that kind of element of additional risk. I'd still make Canelo a favourite over Dmitry Bivol.
Yeah.
I think I probably would, gun to my head, go with Beterbiev over Canelo. I think he's still got more left in him than people. I think when he boxed Adam Dines, people were looking at it going, okay, Beterbiev's been out of the ring, he's been blah, 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 let's see if he's lost a step. And then because it went rounds, everyone went, yep, he's lost a step. I feel like, people were looking to say that about Beterbiev. I think Beterbiev is still an incredibly dangerous man. But Benavidez, Bivol, Charlo, I think you mentioned the UK, so you've got like Zach Parker, Eubank, to those two to a lesser degree than Charlo and Benavidez. I'd make him a significant favourite against, but I wouldn't mind seeing, Canelo Charlo next, Canelo Benavidez next, Canelo Bivol.
The best fight to watch is him and Golovkin.
Yeah, again, I wouldn't mind seeing that.
It's like, for me now, even though I thought Golovkin won the 2 fights, the first one especially, Canelo's a massive favourite in that fight. But I don't think that'll ever be a bad fight, ever. Just because of the styles, it would never be a bad fight. I think Canelo is the fresher now, 2x5. And it was always going to be the case. And I think he wins more convincingly. He actually wins convincingly this time. He actually wins this time. But whichever you see it, But I still think that it's still a great fight to watch. That's the truth of it, because there's always an air that Golovkin can still, he can still bang, still hurt you. He can still be competitive in that fight. And I think someone said recently that Golovkin, I don't know who said it, Golovkin lost a step or something like that. I can't see where that, I can't remember who said it.
I think we were discussing it on here. The review.
Someone on TV said it. Like I said, something like Golovkin's old or lost a thing. And he might not be the same Golovkin he was, but maybe back in 2005 or whatever, 10 or whatever it was. But he's still good enough.
Yeah. Well, I thought that against Derevianchenko, he looked like he'd lost a little bit of a step. Derevianchenko's a good fighter, by the way. It's not like But then I felt like even though Zeramita is not a real barometer for measuring against the elite guys, I still feel like Golovkin looked a lot fresher in that fight than we've seen him in a long time. So I think the Murata fight will obviously tell us a little bit about him, because that's always been a fight that you would have always picked Golovkin to win, at a canter.
Yeah, because it's stylistic.
It's a great fight for him. So if he boxes Murata and potentially struggles in that fight, well, you never know, he might get beat. I think when you get to that level or that age that Golovkin's at, with all the amateur fights and the pro fights, you never know.
Fight for Golovkin, because if he doesn't look great against Murata, then he has lost a step or two, because he's a good fight with Murata, but he's tough. But he could be hit. I mean, he's not hard to hit. He might be able to take a shot, but that's the sort of opponent that Golovkin loves, because he can pound you. I don't think Golovkin wants to knock you out straight away. I think he wants to whack you and whack you and whack.
It's sort of a systematic beating, isn't it? He breaks you down.
I don't think he's like malicious about it. No. I just think that's what he likes. Shot. And then just see you slowly crumble. He quite likes that.